Welcome back to Hiring Excellence. I'm Johnny Campbell. As we wrap up production on new episodes, we're back in the archives today. But this isn't just any replay. This is probably our strongest, we called it early episode of all time. If you've been anywhere near the TA space in 2026, you know that agentic AI is the absolute dominant talking point. Everyone is buzzing about it. But 9 months before it became the biggest buzzword in the industry, I sat down with Pavan to explore exactly what this technology was doing and going to do to hiring. Listening back to it now is kind of wild. What sounded like a bold forecast at the time now reads like a literal roadmap for what recruitment teams are dealing with today. This is the Agentic AI episode we did before Agentic AI was a buzzword. Whether you're trying to wrap your head around where this tech is going next or how to actually harness it for your team today, Pavan's insights are pure gold. We'll be back in the feed with fresh new episodes very shortly. But for now, grab a notepad and enjoy this incredibly prescient conversation with Pavan. Pavan, you're very welcome to this show. It's great to have you here. I wonder, could you perhaps tell us where you're joining us from, tell us a little about your own career background and maybe the team at Eightfold?
Yeah, lovely. Johnny, thanks so much for having me. And it's a privilege to be talking to you and your business here. So I'm joining all of you from Bangalore, India. I head the global talent acquisition function at Eightfold. A bit about Eightfold, if I can share, before I jump into my career background. Eightfold is a 10-year-old startup in AI. We're headquartered in Santa Clara Bay Area, with offices in London, Bangalore, Noida, and elsewhere. We're backed by founder, venture firms like SoftBank, Lightspeed, City, and several other such storied backers. We sell to large enterprises. If I can count some big customers like Coca-Cola, there is Starbucks, PayPal, Ericsson, Department of Labor, Department of Defense. And as you can see, these are really very different kind of customers that we sell to. There are mining companies, the retail companies, big pharma companies that we sell to. So the product is really um, tracks the talent life cycle from acquisition to management, development of talent. So it's not like a classical CR and ATS. That's sort of the background I want to give. To also pioneers in the area of employing AI for matching, skill development, skill taxonomy, and now agentic AI. And I'm sure that's where we will spend most of our time today. A bit about me. I've been with Eightfold for last 4 years. I joined to scale the India operations, but after a year, I got the opportunity to lead the global TA team here at Eightfold. Prior to Eightfold, I was with a company called Akamai Technologies. I was leading the TA there for APJ. Before that, I spent a decade at Juniper Networks, another Silicon Valley, storied company. That's where I, cut my teeth, so to say. And this has been my journey so far, Johnny. Anything else if you want me to add? I'm happy to double take on that.
Give me some context on, so as the VP of TA in a software company in our sector, it's kind of a unique one, right? Because a lot of folks listening might be customers or they might be looking at Eightfold as a product, and you run the recruiting team there. So, tell me about that recruiting team, its size, where are they based, what kind of roles are you hiring for?
Yeah, so we are, as I mentioned, we are in Bay Area, Bangalore, and London. So I have recruiters in all these locations. We are at 20-25 member team right now. I have recruiters in Bangalore, recruiters in Bay Area, a few remote recruiters in the US on the East Coast side. I have recruiters in London as well. We also have a global sourcing practice in Bangalore. So this nimble team supports all the recruiters in terms of early sourcing, lead generation, community building, all of that good stuff that eventually translates to a great talent. Plus, we have a college recruiting leader here in Bangalore, again running the global charter for us. We recruit from top colleges in India, what we call day zero recruiters, of the early ones to get a stake. So roughly, this is how the team has been, designed or shaped.
So, Pavan, you're in this unique situation where you're not here today to sell as Eightfold or talk necessarily about Eightfold as a product. Um, you're here representing your peers in TA. You run recruiting, but uniquely in a company like Eightfold that builds technology for recruiters, you must have a kind of benefit of maybe being customer zero or getting the inside track on new products. So how does that work? What's that relationship between your team, you, and the product teams?
No, it's very fascinating, and I always consider it as a privilege for me and for my team to be able to partner so very closely with our engineering team, the customer success team, the sales team. My team touches all these, the entire product life cycle, right from design of the new features, new products, to the deployment, to the selling, to the post, deployment care that we give to the customers. Now I can double click on this one further, right? Like, um, you know, we have several product managers within the company. They are owning several parts of the product. Like there is a product manager for AI, there are product manager for sourcing, scheduling, product managers for career side. The way we have shaped of the structured that the arrangement is one of the recruiters owns one of those streams, like almost like they're associate product managers for that product manager, and they work very closely with these teams or their team to one, provide early design feedback. Second, provide validation of the design itself, the user research, the nuances, making it even more sharper and more perfect. Uh, as an example, I can give you. Just last month, we launched the AI recruiter, and we've been part of daily stand-ups, design reviews, metrics evaluation, fast loop closing of all the feedback. So there's a lot of hand in glove kind of arrangement that we have with the product and engineering team in building the product and shaping the product. Now that's one part, Johnny. The second part is post. We sell the product. We are part of several design workshop with the customers on how do you define your process, how to best get the ROI on the product, because we've been using this product so very well for so many years now. We have a very strong point of view what works in the marketplace, what does not work, and also been part of several customers interactions where we spent a day recently. We spent a day in Kansas. My recruiter and I spent a day in Kansas to help one of our customers adapt our platform better. We exchange more stories. We exchange what are the gaps, what are the opportunities, and how best to leverage that. So the extent of partnership is really very deep, very embedded, I would say.
I love that. You mentioned one of your customers being Ericsson. Kevin Blair has been on the show several times, and he was sharing with me as an Eightfold customer that he had seen a few months ago a preview of some of the stuff that's coming in the second half of the year. And he's blown away, particularly by some of the agentic stuff. And that's, as you said earlier, what I'd love to dig into. Maybe we can start, if you don't mind, by just defining what agentic AI is and isn't in the context of recruiting from how you and maybe the business sees it.
Yeah, I think the misconception can be that is automation agentic AI? What is agentic AI? What is automation? The agentic AI is beyond automation. With agentic AI is very thoughtfully designed workflow where the AI takes over the much of the operational workflow with the human in the loop. It very thoughtfully, carefully designed checkpoints. So for example, you can let an agent talk to a candidate, do initial recruiter screening, summarize the feedback, get all the notes, engage very thoughtfully with the candidate the way a human would interact, come back to the recruiter and give a very good summary. That's one example of agentic AI. The other example could be like you on the hiring manager side, the manager wants to open a position, the agent can very easily take an instruction saying that, hey, open a position in Nevada for a customer success manager. And the agent is able to collect all the past information like the calibration, the skills required, job description, the salary range, who are the ideal candidates for this role, and open the role, publish the role, and give it to the hiring manager for review, saying that this is what I've done already. This is the final outcome. Now, these are all not really, a fictional or sci-fi kind of scenarios, but the real scenarios that are coming, that are already, at play.
In terms of, I guess a lot of folks remember when I first heard the word agentic AI, it was going, "Oh my God, here's another word I got to get used to." We were just getting around generative AI, and I'm thinking, I don't know what agentic is until someone said agentic. That's it's agent. It's doing things for you. So rather than going off and producing lots of text, which I guess generative AI produces text and produces images and produces video even. So it produces media. Agentic is an action-oriented thing. So I guess the difference between a talker and a doer, right? Generative AI is the talker, agentic AI is the doer, right? Go actually perform these actions. And I've been excited by some of the new agentic AI developments this year. The likes of Alexa Plus being launched by Amazon that can take actions for you from, again, a conversation. So oftentimes there's a mix. Generative might be the understanding piece to interpret, and then agentic will be take the actions. In recruiting, we've seen in the last year several big announcements by different companies of so-called agentic capabilities. You've seen LinkedIn launch their hiring assistant to Talent Connect last year. Still isn't released yet, but in early release, promised to be able to write job specs, post ads, source candidates, reply to those candidates, shortlist for you, answer queries. Talk to me about where your experience overlaps perhaps with products like that, and then goes further, and maybe why that's different to perhaps some of the other stories we've heard where, for example, McDonald's or UPS or 7-Eleven are using agentic AI to hire hourly workers, in a text-based workflow. You're doing this in a professional environment, hiring software engineers. So, for example, so I'll bring it back. I'm conscious I'm asking too many questions at once, but if you could walk us through maybe the agentic AI kind of use case. What are the different points in which you're using AI, agentic AI, have recently started using agentic AI?
Yeah, so the biggest use case so far, and more to come. We're working on new innovations, but right now what we have just released is AI recruiter. A company gets ton of resumes, applications. You get hundreds of applications now. Recruiters are very busy creatures, always overworked, constantly juggling multiple priorities. But what happens typically is, you would look at top few resumes, and then you shortlist a few, and then talk to those, and then that becomes the pipeline. And any good candidate that applies later on in the process, or when someone was the bottom of the pile, could get overlooked. I'm not saying will get overlooked, but could get overlooked, right? Or what agentic AI or AI recruiter is doing is you are unleashing a tireless 24/7 available recruiter to look at all those applications. The candidates can talk to that AI at their convenience. Could be weekends, could be later in the night, during lunch hour, at their convenience. Like we are seeing a lot of people talking to the AI during the weekends when they're at home, with a good, at a mind, with good mind space, all of that. And then they talk to the recruit the AI, share their experience, and the AI is really very, very thoughtful. It is not a list of questions to be asked and check those boxes and come back. Versus we responsive, react to the questions or to the answers, ask smart follow-up questions, bring all that rich data, summarize that, and bring it back to the recruiter for an evaluation. And the recruiter then does a thumbs up, thumbs down based on what has been summarized there. This is useful because people are writing really smart resumes. Chat GPT has helped people write really tailor-made resumes. So the recruiters might end up talking to a lot of false positives if you don't use something like this. Second, the experience for candidates is really superlative. They can talk to a recruiter, AI recruiter, at will, at ease. All right, and we have seen people asking for a second chance to the AI, saying, "Sorry, I'm not fully prepared today. Can I talk to you tomorrow?" And then they can go back to the same invitation, click on it, and talk to the AI recruiter whenever they want. So these are really very candidate experience enhancing, recruiter experience enhancing features that we are building. But the question could be, what would recruiter do? The recruiter is actually then able to then distill that pipeline, talk to the really good or the really matching 3-4 candidates, invest all their time in prepping that candidate, understanding that candidate even better, ensuring they get a white glove treatment and they're successful. Say at scale, this is going to do wonders for all the experience, and we are ensuring there's a human in the loop to make decisions. So AI is not saying this candidate is good or bad. We are not there yet. All we are doing is getting really insightful comments about the candidate's experience, about their background. They're very structured, consistently applied in a rubric format back to the recruiter.
So taking, let's say, an hour-long interview and distilling it into the key information you can summarize and absorb in 3 to 4 minutes as a human, and compare, as you said, a standard rubric of information for every candidate, regardless of how they structure their resume, because the interview, the agent is conducting a consistent interview. You're capturing the same data, or at least asking the same questions consistently of everybody and using those data sets to review. And then, to your point, the human still makes the decision: is that a good or bad answer? What's the
Yes.
weighting? Who do I progress, etc. So
That's
when,
correct.
when you talk
And
about
if I can add one more point to that, Johnny, about the questions that are being asked, right? The AI is tailoring the questions based on the candidate's resume, their background, and the job description. So it's not one template question are being asked to every candidate. It's actually very thoughtful. Like if he's talking to me, if he'll say, "What did you do at Akamai? What did you do at Juniper? Why did you choose this path? Why not that?" So it's extremely smart, very intuitive, a recruiter who's tirelessly working for you.
I love that. Sorry, I think it's a really valid point, because it's trying to get the same evidence from everybody, but it may take a different path. It may ask different questions, different probing, depending on each unique candidate's background. I guess what it's doing is presenting, hopefully, the same, evidence in different categories. So the same categories are trying to be covered. I imagine if a candidate shares 3 data points in one answer, the agent's not going to ask the 2 questions it was waiting to ask, because they've been answered. It moves on. And again, it's
Already,
intelligent that way. And,
yes.
and in your own experience, and I'll come back to the full workflow just a second, Pavan, but so far, as of the recording of this, about how many interviews have you conducted across how many roles? Just give me a sense of, is this something you've done 5 times, 50 times, 500 times? What kind of numbers are we looking at just yet in your own team?
Yeah, we launched roughly 1.5 months ago, Johnny. We so far interviewed some 600 plus candidates over the last, over some 35, 40 different roles spanning US, India, EMEA, across the globe, wherever we have open positions. And the feedback, both from recruiters and the candidates, has been really phenomenal.
Wow. How are you capturing that feedback? Is that quantitative in terms of they're giving a score in a survey, or qualitative, they're sharing notes and emails, or a bit of both?
A bit of both. One is at the end of the call, there is also a survey which is fairly standard. There they can give how do they rate the whole conversation. Second, we also talk to these candidates as a post follow-up conversation. Whoever we want to take them forward to the next round of interviews, we actually go back and talk to them and prep them for the further conversations. Any questions that were unanswered, anything that they want to know more that wouldn't have been answered by the AI. And during that time too, we asked all the candidates about their experience, and they are sharing some really very good feedback. And people have written LinkedIn posts about their experience. Some people have told the AI, though they know they're talking to a machine and not a human, but they concluded the call saying this is the best experience they've had with the machine. They thought it would be very robotic in that sense, but it has been fairly human like.
I know most recruiters, when you talk to them about this concept, if they haven't already done this, so most of them haven't, recruiters conceptually and recruiting leaders conceptually will say, I can see how AI can schedule interviews. I can see maybe how AI can source, maybe even how AI can write emails and respond to candidates. But there's no way you can replace a human doing an interview. When you take that candidate journey, can you walk me through what you've learned about all those different steps, where you have personally seen AI to be strong, and where would you say AI is not there yet, and perhaps you although you don't have to have a human in the loop in a part of a process, you prefer to keep a human in the loop? What's been your experience, Pavan, there?
Well, I think curiously enough, right? if you have more than one human in the loop, it is difficult for AI to do an efficient job. For example, scheduling of an interview. If you look at your own calendar, it's so very difficult. It's all chock a block. It's all blocked, right? There is no place. And a human coordinator can call you and say, hey, can you move this meeting? Can you move your lunch, or can you move this one inside an interview? With AI or with automation, what happens is it can only look at the vacant spots. It can be 1 week from now. It may be convenient for the candidates. So it's a very hard problem to solve if you look at it that way. So the scheduling is a harder problem. That's where we are also trying to introduce a functional interviewer, like not just the recruiter, but also AI can talk on behalf of the hiring manager. Right, and that's again very similar benefits. At will, you can talk, you can scale that to hundreds of candidates. So it's another great experience for everyone there. Well, again, the human in the loop still decides whether this was the right answers. Do we have the right background and everything? So the difficult part is the scheduling part. Funnily enough, the interviewing part is fairly straightforward. Then the offer negotiation, the offer design part, can't be done by AI. If the jobs are difficult to hire, if you're in a tough talent market, but if say the jobs are like vanilla jobs, we're hiring hundreds of people in a month for same job, and you have a very set compensation, set package philosophy, the AI can of course roll out the offers too. So right from creating of jobs to screening of resumes to offer design, offer negotiation, that's where AI can do the job. If the job is fairly simple, commoditized job that you're trying to fill, what's difficult is still the sourcing is quite difficult, especially if you're chasing top talent. If you're in an industry where the talent matters more than anything else, then I don't know yet if AI can effectively replace a human sourcer talking to somebody, wooing them, coaxing them, through multiple strategies. That's something which is going to be hard. That's where human ingenuity, creativity, grit, all of that comes in, and that's where I see recruiters can focus more of their energies towards, sourcing, building community, doing branding, storytelling, pitching your product, pitching your company. And that would still continue to be in vogue or to be in currency.
It's interesting. I was looking at a post that Glenn Cathy, a good friend of ours, posted recently on LinkedIn about a University of Zurich study where they had, unbeknownst to the users, put AI profiles into Reddit, into several forums, and engineered situations of negotiation and persuasion. And they found that the AI performed in the 99th percentile for negotiation and persuasion in these real world examples over 3-4 months with unbeknownst real humans. And so maybe the time for negotiation is actually moving towards AI. And we were thinking about this because what you've described is probably the reverse of what a lot of recruiters think, which is, posting, sourcing, engaging can be automated. Interviewing, no way, that's a human thing. And you're saying actually scheduling is difficult. Sourcing, if you're looking for high-end talent, might be a human thing. Interviewing is a standard, structured thing that actually lends itself much more to this. And it brings to mind a comment that, again, in a podcast that we were doing with Glenn Cathy recently, he shared another, idea to think about. He was saying, a lot of people give AI the admin work. And he said, but imagine if you think of AI as an assistant that can do any amount of work for you, but this assistant has an IQ of 140, 150.
Mhm.
Would you give it the admin work? Isn't that a waste of
No.
its resources?
Yeah.
I like with that in mind, where do you go next? Like, what would you be excited to see? And I'm not necessarily talking about Eightfold's product strategy here, Pavan, but you as a TA leader, where would you love to see agentic AI go next? And what problems would you love to see it solve next?
Yeah, I think I will speak from the from a tech recruiting lens, because that's what I've done my entire career. So I can only speak from that standpoint authentically. I would say AI can really help more and more in candidate rediscovery. You you don't really have to source so so manually, if I can say, you do all the heavy lifting. AI should be able to tell you that if you're looking for this kind of talent, you already have in your talent universe somewhere hidden. Could be a former employee, could be a offer declined candidate, a silver medalist. How there is always talent hidden in the mine of resumes you already have. Like, can AI proactively bring that up to you, which again, a lot of AI centered ATSs can still do it, but being even more proactive, saying that these are the 5 candidates, you should send an outreach, and I can help craft that outreach, right? This is again based on how bad the search has so far been. We are seeing so many candidates getting rejected. Now I can come to your rescue without even being asked to. Right? That's one. Second is, of course, being able to like periodically engage with the talent. You can foresee what kind of positions you're going to hire. You hired this skill last year or this time consistently, so I think you will hire again this one based on how your positions are being published. I can recommend you to do this event. I can recommend you to send these initial feeder emails to these n number of candidates in your community. I think that proactive planning, proactive plotting of the next moves, while the recruiter is busy handling immediate fires, that could be a great ally for recruiters to do that.
I wonder, could you see a world where, these recruiting agentic AI recruiters get connected to the HRIS and they're able to review quarterly review data and employee feedback surveys, and again begin to predict based on employee sentiment what departments might have needs coming up in the next 6 to 9 months.
Attrition,
Might
yeah.
get a bit scary for folks. The opportunity is there. I think the technology can do it. It's just a case of where, will humans want to have it do that, essentially. Before we kind of conclude, it'd be remiss of me not to mention guardrails, responsible AI practices. So, maybe you can give me a brief overview just in terms of how the Eightfold product brings responsible AI into place, but maybe how do you also then bring that into your processes with your recruiters and your team? So maybe if you can share with me those two angles on responsible use of AI as you see it.
It's a very important topic, Johnny. Thanks for bringing it up. In the product design itself, we have been very deliberate in ensuring there's a human in the loop to make a decision. So it's not, the machine is not making any decisions there. It's all inferences, it's all recommendations, but never a decision. That's one. The second is the AI that we have is completely explainable. We can actually show you why we are recommending a certain thing, like what are the factors going behind it, and you can always audit that. The third thing is we have a lot of external audits, internal audits, a lot of transparency. We have an AI ethics council. The council is helped by people from OFCCCP. There is no EEOC, a lot of regulators, advisors on how we are using AI. We are advising governments like New York State on how to use AI for employment. So there is a lot of leadership that Eightfold is showing in terms of being at the forefront of responsible AI. So that's one part of the whole product, the way we are designing the product itself. Second part, in terms of processes, also we are ensuring that people get opportunities to opt out of AI. Somebody says, I don't want AI to evaluate anything, be it my resume, be interviewing, any touch point. I want an AI free journey. We ensure that they get that opportunity to be able to do that. The in terms of feedback surveys, all the the metrics that we have to measure the experience of candidate, that's really very transparent. We keep a very close tab on what people are saying and how we can provide any opportunity to redress any of the grievances that people may have.
A very thoughtful approach, both from the company and your team. And Pavan, I really appreciate you sharing that. Final reflections. If we have leaders listening to this call, some skeptical, some excited, but they want to try and experiment at least and begin their journey with piloting agentic AI, what advice would you give to folks, regardless of what system they're using or technologies they might have in front of them? Do you have any advice you could share with other leaders around your journey, what you recommend others do, how to approach beginning to roll out or experiment with agentic AI?
Yeah, I think one I think it should be all centered around building trust. Trust in terms of the technology that is being used. Can you trust the recommendations? We validate that the systems are really well built, well designed. Second is build trust in the end user. So don't start with a big splash. Identify a small group of users who are actually diehard optimists. Sometimes this technology can fail, and the initial disappointment shouldn't cloud the efficiency or the adoption for the entire enterprise. So choose your first team very carefully. Pilot with a small group of diehard optimists, both on the business side as well as the recruiting side, and measure all the outcomes. Sometimes you may not get all the data points that you would want. So think of how you can build your own data collection points, dashboards. Talk to a lot of early adopters, users, like candidates or managers, get their feedback, and thereafter you can scale rapidly. I would say centered everything on trust is the way forward.
I love that. If leaders have any questions about more detailed questions about how to get started, what to do, are you okay with folks reaching out to you on LinkedIn, Pavan? That work for you?
Yeah, I'm happy to engage.
I will share your LinkedIn profile details in the show notes, and hopefully you get a lot of interest. Pavan, I really appreciate you sharing that. I think you're at the forefront of innovation here in terms of adoption as a TA leader of Agentic AI. I only see it going one way for all other heads of TA in time. Great to hear how you've taken that giant leap forward. You're in the privileged position of having a technology team behind you with a great platform that can do that, which is a great position to be in. And maybe we'll hopefully get you back on the show in the next year or two to see what have you done next, what has been the next journey and the next step for you and your team. Owen, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you so much.
And thank you for joining us and hearing Pavan's story and how Eightfold are using their own product internally and the concept of agentic AI, and maybe some of the surprises that you might have heard today on how it's working and in what areas it's working and how successful it's been so far. We'll be back next week with another fantastic Hiring Excellence podcast, another great leader sharing their stories. If you don't follow us already, please do so on Spotify, Apple, or wherever you get your podcasts. But until then, we'll see you next week.